If you enjoy Beyond The Blox and want to hear more episodes from more creators on the Roblox platform, be sure to stick around to the end of the episode for information on how to support our media content. With that said, enjoy the episode. Today we're joined by a Roblox player turned developer who is a systems engineer for Supersocial, a company creating new immersive experiences on the Roblox platform. Join us as we find out how his 10-year-long journey led him to the forefront of developing for the Metaverse. Let's go Beyond the Blox. Hello and welcome to Beyond The Blox, the podcast all about the Roblox platform and game development. I am of course your host Bantek, and we're joined by MrAsync today. So hello MrAsync and welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me.
No worries. So you're a systems engineer with Supersocial, a relatively new studio that raised $5.2 million in funding to create games in the Metaverse. The company's been expanding the team, picking up some big names like Slightnick, who some people may know as Crazyman32. But before we dive too deep into the present and all the amazing things going on at the moment, let's first go back to where you started. So a lot of people we've been chatting to recently are kind of in this pool of long-time Roblox users, and I think you fit into that group having been on Roblox for about 10 years. As my regular listeners know, I'm always super interested with how people first found the platform and what kept them here for so long. So how did you first hear about Roblox?
Yeah, so I was 8 years old when I first made my account on Roblox. And I had a neighbor who's older than me. He was in high school when I was in 8th grade. And he was playing Roblox at the time. And when I would go over to their house to play wiffle ball or to swim in their pool or whatever, we'd play Roblox on their laptop. And just naturally, I got intrigued. And that's just kind of where it started. Made my own account with my parents' permission. And that kind of kicked off my liking for the platform.
Awesome. So there's this lovely sweet image that you posted on Twitter, I think last month, of you meeting David Baszucki in 2013 as a player of Roblox, and again in 2021 as a successful developer at RDC this year. So firstly, what's the story behind that 2013 pick and how did that come about?
Yeah, so in 2013, Roblox did one of their Bloxcon circuits in the US. They went to Chicago, New York, and I think there was also one in London. And I live about 4 hours away from New York City. And my parents surprised me with tickets to Bloxcon 2013. And so when I arrived at the Intrepid in New York City, they handed out posters, they had demos of the new physics solver, and they had, you could buy fedoras and the cheese hat. You could buy actual hats. It was crazy. It was wild. And with those posters, you could go around and Saranok was there. I know Shiletsky was there. There were a lot of engineers were there. A lot of people at Roblox. And with these posters, I was able to actually have it signed by David. And now that picture was not taken by my parents or anybody. That was taken by the photographers at Bloxcon. And I didn't even notice that picture until a few years ago. I went to the nostalgic thing, went to the blog where Roblox had blogged the day in New York City of Bloxcon. And I was scrolling through the pictures and I found it. And I was amazed. I was like, oh my God, that's me. And so I saved the picture and I've had it ever since. And of course I still have the posters. So when I got to get a picture with David this year at RDC, I thought, what better way to spread it than to put it next to the first time I met him when I was a child and kind of have this journey.
That's amazing. It must have been so strange sort of seeing that on the blog. I assume in 2013 you were still very much a player of Roblox and not a developer.
Yeah, I had dabbled a little bit in free models and just kind of tinkering around in studio, but we're definitely more of a player than a developer for sure.
Awesome. How did it feel kind of taking the 2021 picture with David, and what does that picture mean to you, especially when you place it next to that 2013 one, 8 years apart?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. For me, it's kind of a sense of achievement. I mean, at a surface level, right? He was there, anybody can get a picture with him. But to me personally, it just means a lot because I've spent the last 5 years developing throughout all high school. I'm in college now, still develop, but even through high school and the tail end of 8th grade, I spent a lot of my free time developing. I didn't really go out much. I didn't really do a lot. I didn't pay attention in class because I was working instead. Like I spent a lot of time developing. So to have these two pictures is really meaningful to me because it just kind of shows all my hard work paying off throughout the years, from when I started as a player and then where I am now. It's kind of crazy.
Definitely. I mean, obviously a lot has changed since 2013. Obviously you've grown up by 8 years, but so has Roblox as a platform. What kept you here all of that time? And kind of at what point did that transition from a set of games into a development platform for you through high school?
Yeah, so I mean, the kind of transition point for me for going from a player to a developer is literally Lumber Tycoon 2. Like that is the sole reason why I was a huge player of Lumber Tycoon 2, huge fan. And when the entire game was leaked, like server scripts, client scripts, and you could essentially download it and put it on your profile, that's when I really started working with programming. And I think it was I was so intrigued with how that game was written, because I'd been playing it for so long, that I just wanted to learn it, right? I opened these scripts and I was confused. I was like, what is this? And so I just had a yearning to learn so that one day I could understand what that was. And I think that was what kickstarted my career. And then when I released my first game, I wanted to chase success. I wanted to chase that. I think that's what kept me on the platform, is just chasing a successful game.
Fantastic. So let's jump forward to the present day, and I described Supersocial earlier as a studio. Is that an accurate description, or would you describe it differently?
So Supersocial definitely could be considered as a studio. We just had a giant shift in the way that we operate. We kind of moved some resources around and kind of split up the teams. But the way that it works is we have multiple games out right now. We have Ballista, Ghostopia, Pirates vs. Ninjas, and then another game in the works. And essentially each of these games is a compartmentalized team within Supersocial. And so when I first joined, the Ghostopia team was quite large. There was 15 people working on that game. It was about 15 people. Don't take my word for it. It was a lot of people. And then Ballista and Pirates vs. Ninjas were smaller teams, about 4 people. And the idea is that Ghostopia was the flagship game of the company, and Ballista and Pirates vs. Ninjas were part of our Labs program. And Labs is essentially, you can think of it as, we have a team that wants to make a game, and they come and join Supersocial, and they're part of us, but they're still working together kind of in their own group. Now that restructure split apart the Ghostopia team, and essentially meshed everybody together. So we still offer Labs, but we also have other employees, if you will, developers, that aren't necessarily assigned to one project. They kind of move around, if that answers your question.
Yeah, I think it does very well. How is that with all the different people, the different working parts, and obviously you're creating things that different people within that team need to use as well?
Yeah, it's working. So first of all, Supersocial is a fully remote company, so there's no headquarters, there's no single location. There are pockets of developers, like there's a lot of people that work from Seattle and from Brazil, but there's no central location. And so really working for a company it's just a different environment. There's a level of professionalism, but also there's just a level of connection because we're all extremely passionate about what we're doing. And so I have yet to have a bad experience or an argument with anybody at Supersocial. It's an extremely friendly work environment. It's a really good balance. I guess I can start at the level of the relationship between my direct report, Peter, and myself. Peter comes from Big Fish Games. He worked at Big Fish Games for 15 years before coming to Supersocial. And so he brings an immense amount of industry experience. And I bring a lot of Roblox experience. And so our dynamic and our synergy is really something that I'm extremely proud of because, he can give me the suggestions from an industry standpoint and I can say, that doesn't really fly on Roblox. Or, yeah, that's possible. Or no, it's not possible. And so from that level, it's a good synergy. Now, when it comes to developing with people that I might not necessarily work with directly, we take advantage of tools like Slack. We use Discord now, actually, as kind of like a dev floor, if you will, with open VCs where people can hop in and have a water cooler discussion, just like you would in a real office. And so when it comes to working with other developers, we try to make it as organic as possible. And so if I need to talk to somebody, you ping them, hop in a VC, just like you would in real life. And really the mindset of working with other people is just having an open mind, right? Especially as a systems engineer, what I'm writing, okay, I want it to be good, but I'm also not the one using it. So you need to really talk to other people and say, hey, what are your use cases for this? Or what features do you want? And it's really making a lot of decisions, a lot of small decisions, compromising, changing your vision to really satisfy everybody. But it's working with somebody. And I think if you're still in school and you do group projects and you're put with random people, like definitely like take advantage of that and get to know how to work with other people, because you're going to be thrown into a situation where, you know, my boss is like, hey, I need you to talk to Dave and do this. And I'm like, cool. And I do it. And so I think having those skills for communication and working with people is very important.
Definitely. It's fascinating kind of how the company works all remotely as well. Do you feel that there's sort of an extra pressure with it being a company that has, investors, venture capitalists, all that sort of stuff? Because for me, with my own little game studio, if things are, going to be slightly delayed or you're a bit too busy or priorities change or whatever, it's really flexible. You don't really have to answer to anyone and no one's necessarily losing out on money if you do so. Is there kind of an added pressure with having, investors and this big corporate structure essentially?
Sure. I'm sure there's pressures on some people. I've yet to experience that. The actual investors are sort of abstracted from like the rest of the company. Upper management, which is really just our CEO, our CFO, and our Tachi, who I forget her position name. I'm so sorry, Tachi. But they kind of make up the upper management, and they really deal with the venture capitalists more than anything else. I know there was something when I was very early on in the company where there was a board meeting with the investors, and I had to put together some slides for what I was working on. So that was a little, like I was like, oh shit, like I gotta put this together for these like big guys who have a lot of money, and it was a little scary, but no, definitely not on a day-to-day basis. There's no pressure because, it's a startup at the end of the day. And, it takes time for these things to work out. And the investors that we have were all plays in Metaverse-esque companies like Supercell, with Clash of Clans and Clash Royale, and Discord as well. So these investors know their industry, and they know, so there's really no pressure. I don't think. I don't have any pressure, at least.
Yeah, that's good. Definitely if it's not fed through to the developers that you can just do your thing, that's ideal. So Ghostopia, which launched its beta on the 23rd of September, is already nearing 1 million visits and highly rated by players. And September's not miles after June, which is when you became systems engineer at Supersocial. So I wondered sort of individually, what's your involvement been with Ghostopia and with those lab projects, and have they been quite full on since taking that role?
Yeah, so I work in my own department, DevTech. So I work under the technical director, Peter Yap. And together we're kind of working on this system called the Superstack, which is essentially a shared set of libraries that all engineers use at Supersocial. So my direct involvement with Ghostopia, there were a couple of pull requests that I made for some UI changes, but really my involvement has been more for data analytics. That's been the biggest thing for me, is writing this platform that we call Looking Glass, and this is our analytics platform, which essentially is something new to Roblox. It's only recently that Roblox developers have been getting into analytics and building analytic-driven games. But that's really what I've been working on, is creating this system that's essentially a drag-and-drop solution. So the labs teams are taking advantage of it, and so is Ghostopia, where we have data being sent off Roblox to PlayFab, which is a Microsoft Azure platform. And we're just able to query that data and kind of build our updates based on the data that we're seeing. And that's been the biggest thing for me, is it's a lot of industry standard technologies. And so, like, I kind of loop back to the question. My involvement's more in developing these back frameworks rather than actual gameplay stuff.
Got you. I imagine these analytics are probably quite important, especially with all the funding that Supersocial has had, sort of proving to investors and stuff what's happening with the games, and as you say, improving things, improving metrics, getting more people to spend time and money in the game, that sort of thing.
Yeah, the analytics are extremely important. The industry of analytics itself is massive. And so for me, it's been an adjustment to kind of work with that. But really, it is important. I mean, we have a principal analyst, so we have somebody who's completely dedicated to writing queries and giving us these insights. And that's the biggest thing for me, is that the systems that I'm writing have to be extremely bulletproof, because this data is money. This data is extremely important to what we do and the decisions that we make. And so writing these is extremely important, and that's fulfilling for me, but also definitely something new, and it's all custom too, which makes it harder.
Yeah, definitely. I think you're right that a lot of Roblox developers don't really use analytics that much, or don't really appreciate necessarily what it does. Obviously, it might not be as important when there's only one or two people in a team, but particularly if you're trying to boost your game and get it towards the kind of levels of success that you see on the front page, you'll need that.
100%.
Before taking your role as a systems engineer and focusing on this analytics side, you were a gameplay engineer for a little while, weren't you? How did that role differ from your systems engineer role, and what prompted the change?
As a gameplay engineer, I've been kind of in and out of gameplay and systems for the past few years, and the way that you can look at gameplay engineering is anything that a player's going to interact with, that's gameplay engineering. So pet systems, housing systems, user interface systems, those are all gameplay engineering things. So as a gameplay engineer, some of the things that I worked on were my game yardwork simulator, so like the actual mechanic of farming grass, that's all gameplay stuff. Systems engineering is the other side of that, and this typically happens on like the server side, where you're designing these, as they're called, systems, and you're building them to do things, right? It's a vague thing to say, but for example, the analytics system that I'm writing, I basically am writing modules and services that then other developers are taking advantage of. Similarly to how Roblox just released a bundle of modules related to their new showcase place. I think they have like a emote bar. It's something related to voice chat. So that's like what I would write. I would write a module now, and then somebody else would use it and take advantage of it. And that's like really the big difference, is that with gameplay engineering, you're working on something that players are going to see. It's players are going to interact with it, and it's what makes the game. And systems engineering is what makes the game work. That's kind of the difference.
Yeah, I got you. And why did you change kind of role from gameplay engineer to systems engineer in June?
So it was definitely a long transition. I had started building systems, I want to say in 2019 at a small company called Bloopville, Game in Progress, and they were asking for a pet system. And so really that was kind of the role for me that kind of opened my eyes to systems engineering, because I wasn't just writing a system. I wasn't just creating pets. I had to write a system that scaled, that could be added on in the future, and a lot of other engineers were going to directly interface with. And so that was really kind of my first introduction to writing these systems and kind of understanding the mindset that you need to be in. And I just kind of fell in love with it. I loved it way more than gameplay engineering. I enjoy architecting systems and solving problems. And that was just what clicked, and I liked it, and I've been doing it ever since, and it's definitely something that I enjoy.
Awesome. So where is Supersocial sort of as a company going in the next few years, and where do you kind of fit into that roadmap with your systems?
Yeah, so Supersocial, right, obviously right now we're targeted towards Roblox, but we're much more than that. We're a Metaverse company, and really what that means is connecting platforms. So, we have no dedicated plans right now that I can speak of, but, in the future, you might see us on Unity, you might see us on the Unreal Engine, you might see us on other game engines, and really the goal for us as a company is to do what we need to do to build the metaverse. We're building games for players and for fans. We're not building products. So what's important to us is going where people are going. So for example, VR has been kind of a stagnant industry for the past few years, but say VR was to take off, then we're going to go there, right? We're going to go not where the money is, but where the people are, because we want to build experiences for them. So we're kind of a fluid company in that sense. Roblox was an excellent place to start. I mean, obviously the company was founded before I joined, but speaking from what I've heard, the reason that we started in Roblox was because that's where people are. Roblox is huge right now. It's public. It's a publicly traded company, and so that's why we're here. And to kind of talk about where I sit in that, because I've spearheaded this interconnectedness of platforms. There's a lot of cross-experience systems that I'm building, right? You can buy an item in one experience and you'll have it in the other, and all that has to happen off-site on external servers. I play a pretty important role in defining what that's going to look like. And because I'm building experience and wisdom now, I'm going to kind of be the one spearheading these systems in the future, leading a team of engineers to develop cross-platform systems for if I want to send a message to somebody in a Unity game from Roblox, I can do that, right? That's really what I do. Not necessarily just with data analytics, but in general is just building platforms that really connect players together.
Absolutely. And have you used any of those other platforms like Unity and Unreal Engine and stuff before, or is that new for you?
Those platforms are relatively new to me. I've dabbled with Unity a little bit. I took a week-long code camp a couple years ago in Unreal Engine. But for me, it's more about the language that I need to use. And really, it's not about the engine. As long as I know the language, I can make it happen. Just being at Supersocial, I've had to learn JavaScript, TypeScript, other industry technologies. But to kind of circle back to another question, why do I like systems engineering? I love learning new things and pushing myself. And so just because I don't know the platform doesn't mean I don't want to do it. I want to do it. I want to learn more. I think that's what keeps me going.
Definitely. So we've seen that word, the metaverse, thrown around more and more recently. Obviously, Roblox has been using it quite a bit for the past couple of years, and Facebook have changed their parent company name to Meta, as Mark Zuckerberg described his vision of the metaverse. And it seems like he wants a place for work, education, entertainment, and leisure, all in one sort of virtual connected world. And David Baszucki at Roblox has been saying very similar things, at least on the education and entertainment side for a little while now too. Do you think it will go as far as Meta says it will? And how do you think the games and experiences on Roblox and other platforms will create this change in everyday life?
I would love to preface this by saying that I do not agree with Facebook and Meta. I don't like that. Personally, I think that them changing their company to Meta is kind of almost taking credit for the metaverse, because now everybody, when they think of Meta, they're going to think of formerly Facebook, right? So I'm not a big fan of that, but I do agree with what Meta is saying. I think is truly going to be that one-size-fits-all place for whatever it needs to be. Before I was a systems engineer at Supersocial, I was a commission-based developer for 3 months for them, where I was tasked with creating a virtual headquarters for their 1-year anniversary. And in that headquarters, I had created this board, and it was more of a festivities board where the people at Supersocial could go in and write a little anecdote to celebrate 1 year, and it would be written on a whiteboard, and they could put it there. But that little mechanic is kind of proof of what the metaverse can be, right? Now that we have voice chat, and now that we have the tools to do whiteboards and stuff like that, I think that the metaverse will be exactly that. We have the opportunity to hold meetings in Roblox. We have the opportunity to teach people in Roblox. We have the opportunity to have fun in Roblox. And I think the metaverse in general, not just Roblox, is that. I think the idea is to replicate real life digitally, accept technology, and push it to its limits. And I think that that's completely possible, and that's definitely the future and where we're going.
Do you sort of see that as a responsibility or maybe more of an opportunity for Roblox developers being kind of up here at the forefront of the metaverse concept?
I'm not sure. That's a good question. I think there's definitely a fine line between like a game developer and a metaverse developer, which I don't want to coin that term, but I think there's definitely different things. I don't think necessarily making a game is part of the metaverse. I just think the metaverse is kind of like this term that encapsulates what you can do online. But I think it's more of just an option for developers to kind of dip their hand into the metaverse. And I think the moment you do that, you've created a system. For example, going between games is part of the metaverse. I think, I don't think developers really have a responsibility to work with the metaverse. I think it's more of an option.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
I'd love to speak more on what the metaverse is. I think, for some reason, Facebook or Meta has like an obsession with virtual reality right now. And they're like so engrossed in this idea that like, oh, I'm going to put on a headset and I'm in the metaverse. Like I don't personally think that that's the future. VR is just not, I don't think it's there yet.
Yeah, I mean it's quite Matrix-like sort of their vision, isn't it? Where you enter you enter this virtual space and you're in there sort of as a whole, rather than it necessarily just being on a screen or something in front of you.
Which I think, I definitely love VR, and I think, like, the idea of, like, a Ready Player One-esque platform is definitely amazing, but I just think it's unrealistic. And that's why I think companies like Meta they're just trying too hard. Because, like, they don't have a product to ship. Like, what are they working on? Like, what is their, like, okay, they can tout Metaverse all they want, but, like, what are they working on? And I think that's why Roblox is so important, because it really encapsulates what the metaverse should be. You can play it on a phone, you can play it on an iPad, you can play it on a console, you can play it on a computer, or you could put the headset on and be in the world. You have these options, and I think that's what the metaverse is. I should be able to take a meeting in a VR headset, but I should also be able to take it on a phone. I think Meta's vision for the metaverse is not necessarily aligned with the reality of it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's sort of all of those things at once, not just one of them.
Right.
What sort of are your plans with Roblox in the future? Are you very much just working with Supersocial at the moment, or are you doing any sort of little spin-off hobby projects on the side? Where do you kind of see yourself with Roblox?
Yeah, I mean, as much as I love systems engineering, I still have a deep passion for Roblox and the platform. And, you know, I'm kind of working on a side project right now, but it's not really something that I'm pushing very hard. It's just something to kind of fill the time. But I don't know. I think I've in a way moved on from Roblox. Not as a whole, for sure. Like, definitely not as a whole. But in a certain way, I think I've moved on from creating games. I really love cloud technologies, which is, like I said, what I do now. And obviously that's... this is going to be controversial, but I think it's more of a sustainable career than just specifically Roblox. And so, I don't know. Again, I have a deep passion for Roblox, and I would hate to say goodbye, but I do enjoy what I'm doing now.
Yeah, well, I think it makes sense to diversify a little bit anyway, and just pick up those other skills, you know, long term, as you say, if you needed to switch platforms, or, you know, with Supersocial going across multiple platforms, it's good to definitely have more skills than just Roblox specific skills, I think.
Exactly. And when I mean, like, sustainability, I don't necessarily mean the sustainability of Roblox, because obviously Roblox is not going anywhere anytime soon. But, you know, I was on the indie game dev grind for multiple years and just hopping from game to game to try to make money. And it's definitely hard because, you know, you have a game idea that you think is fantastic, and then you ship it and it doesn't do very well. And then you're without money for a while. And I think when I say sustainability, I mean that, right? Because I'm an adult now. I have bills to pay and responsibilities. And, like, when I was younger, chasing games and just, like, you know, oh, if it does well, whatever. If it doesn't do well, so what? Like, that was fun. But now, you know, obviously I need to have a job, and I need to make money. And so really doing what I'm doing now is more sustainable than just making games.
Yeah, well, I suppose it's the defining line, isn't it, between a hobby and a career, or a hobby and a job. Is the hobby, you're not too bothered about necessarily how successful it is or how long it takes to be successful or any of that. Whereas you've got that added pressure with it being a job, that you do have to maintain a sort of minimum level of success to, as you say, remain afloat and sustainable.
Yeah, and to kind of talk about that, you know, for me, the one thing that people might say, and I've answered this question before, is, you know, do you enjoy work? And, like, for me, like, honestly, like, straight up, like, I don't believe that what I'm doing is work. I don't dread it. I enjoy it very much, to the point where it is still a hobby for me. And, you know, there's that saying where, like, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life, right? And I fully believe that. And that's what I tell this to encourage people to find something that you truly enjoy. And for me, it is programming, systems engineering, developing, whatever you want to call it. And you know that you found it when you're bored, and that's what you do. And it's not out of something that you're like, oh, I have to meet this deadline. You just do it because you love to do it. That's where I'm at right now. There's still a fear of burnout, right? You could burn out at some point. But for me, you know, I do not look at work as work. I enjoy it a lot. I have a fantastic time doing it. And that has only gotten more prominent moving to Supersocial. It does not feel like any work. I'm ecstatic in a way that I'm paid for what I love to do. And so that would be my words of wisdom to anybody else, is to find something that you can spend hours doing without even knowing it, and do that a lot, because it's not very often do people find something that they do that they truly enjoy.
Yeah, I think that should be the goal, sort of the dream of anyone, really, regardless of their field.
And unfortunately, that's just like something in our culture, that maybe not in our culture, but especially in American culture, that people hate their jobs. That it's like, 9 to 5, like, people hate it. And I just like think that that's such a bleak outlook on it. Like, you gotta like what you do. And fortunately, I found that very early, and I knew that this is what I wanted to do from like a freshman in high school. So yeah, for me, it's not that bad. But yeah, I think that definitely find something you enjoy.
Yeah, well, it certainly sounds like it. In terms of, Roblox as a platform and how you see the platform, when you first joined, I assume as a kid, similar to when I joined, it was kind of this magical place of creative freedom. It felt very magical. Do you still sort of get that feeling with Roblox when you're creating things on there, when you open a blank base plate and just create stuff? Does it still have that kind of magic feeling that it did as a kid?
I think it definitely does, to a certain degree. I think that there's always, especially for me, it's not more of the base plate, it's more of when I open a script. When I instance a new script and I open it and it just says print hello world, like that screen is just like, all right, here we go. Like, it's just like opening the doors to anything. And that's really, for me, something that's been special, and it has stayed with me all these years, is opening a new script and you just know that whatever you write in here is gonna do something good. And that's just something that I definitely hold dear.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that was what draws me to programming as a whole anyway, whether it's Roblox or making websites or whatever. Just starting with nothing, as you say, you start with an empty script and you just write, and it's just you pouring sort of your brain onto the script, and then it does something in the 3D world, or it creates a website that people can interact with, or whatever. It's a very cool feeling, creating something from nothing. Well, that's all we have time for today, so thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Async. Is there anything you'd like our listeners to check out, or any sort of sneak peeks of what's to come?
Definitely check out my Twitter. I'm working on posting a lot more tips, tricks, programming things that I've learned over the years. Check out my website, MrAsync.com. It's my portfolio, my resume. Get in touch with me, LinkedIn, yada, yada, yada. Check out Supersociallink.com, and maybe there's a career for you awaiting. I think a sneak peek of the future of Supersocial is stay on the lookout for new experiences coming soon, and updates, amazing updates to current ones. Because, we're going to be rolling out some things that really are platform defining. So stay on the lookout for that. And stay on the lookout, too, for just new games in general and new experiences on Roblox. Because there's a lot of cool things coming soon. Not just from Supersocial, but just from in general. So just buckle in. It's about to get crazy. But I would like to thank Bantech for having me on the podcast, and those listening in, and those who will listen later. This has been awesome, and I hope to interact with you online in the Metaverse at some point.
You're absolutely welcome anytime. So you can find links to Mr. Async's social media and to Supersocial in the description of this episode on YouTube. Beyond the Blox is brought to you by Bantech Systems, a development studio on Roblox. You can support our media content to help us create more podcast episodes, as well as videos and live streams, by signing up to the Bantech Media Patreon page. Head to patreon.com/Bantech for more information, or watch our overview video on the Bantech Systems YouTube channel to hear me explain what it is, why it's needed, and the different tiers that are available. Thank you to our executive producer, One Track Minded, for supporting us and for helping to produce our episodes alongside the Bantech Media team. And thank you for listening. I'll see you next time on Beyond the Blox.